are the aspects that still needs to be strictly human and not handed over to AI?
In my opinion, those things are the customer experience and quality. Because one of my teams has actually used AI to do a sort of a pre-screen of pull requests before code is checked in. But at the end of it, a human still looks at it. A developer with experience still looks at it and says, yeah, okay, this makes sense, that makes sense, or not. AI still hallucinates. And if that gets into your code, that's going to be a nightmare to debug.
Welcome to Discover Dialogues podcast, powered by TechDogs. The world of business and technology is evolving at breakneck speed. AI breakthroughs, digital transformation, and game-changing innovations are reshaping industries every day. On this show, we dive into the trends, ideas, and strategies driving the future. We're sitting down with industry leaders, innovators, and disruptors to bring you fresh insights, bold perspectives, and real conversations that matter. So plug in, tune in, and let's discover what's next.
Today on the show, we are joined by Brian Olynyk, Director of Software Development at Bentley Systems, a people-first engineering leader with international experience building and scaling high-performing teams across startups and global enterprises. From leading large development organizations at Booking.com to driving platform consolidation, continuous delivery, and OKR adoption at Bentley, Brian has spent his career at the intersection of technology, culture, and leadership. In this episode, Brian dives deep into building empowered teams, maintaining purpose at scale, and where human judgment still matters most in an AI-driven engineering world. Let's dive in.
Thank you so much for joining another episode of TechDogs Discover Dialogues. Brian, it's a pleasure to have you on the show today.
Thank you, Nikhil. It's wonderful to be here.
And before we join into the exciting stuff about leadership and your expertise and human judgment in the era of AI, right? I want to rewind a little and take our audience through your professional journey. And I'm sure it is an exciting one because your early days from engineering and architecture, now you're leading empowered team of developers, right? So I want our audience to have a little preview of your professional journey. If you could walk us through that.
Certainly. Thanks for asking. So my journey has been a winding one, to say the least. And so I started out of university working at IBM as a demonstration developer. So I was with the DB2 organization, developing demonstrations to show off the latest and greatest database technology. I did that for a few years, traveling around the country and continent demonstrating DB2's features. It was a wonderful opportunity to start meeting clients and talking with them and everything. That progressed for a while, and then I got into project management with IBM. I helped them ship some of their biggest database appliances at the time. Did that for a few years, and I said, you know what? I want to get back into my developer roots. So I went, and I also wanted to step away from a bigger company at the time, just to experience something of a smaller company. Found a smaller startup that a coworker of mine had been participating in. I joined as the front end architect of that endeavor. Wonderful experience. This was just at the time that Angular JS was coming out and JavaScript was really exploding and all that stuff. So it was a wonderful time to be in the area. I learned a lot, great position. Unfortunately, it was a startup and they hit some funding trouble, and there came a time when they couldn't pay us anymore, unfortunately. So I had to find a new job. I signed up as a JavaScript consultant for another company, Wrangle.io, here in Toronto. I learned a lot about Angular development as well as agile development in that company. It was a wonderful place to work. But this was the time my first daughter and second daughter were coming to be, and it was a long commute. So I looked for something closer to home. You'll notice a lot of my job changes revolve around sort of life changes and everything as well. So after Wrangle.io, I joined 360 Insights, which was a rebate management company, making sure, when you get an instant rebate at Best Buy, like 10% off this new product, everyone from the distributor to the wholesaler and everything gets a little piece of that pie. So we developed software for making sure that everyone got the right money at the right time. That was my first opportunity to have a formal management position. 360 Insights also really cared passionately about culture for their department, which was interesting. And so I was a democratically elected culture ambassador, elected to uphold the responsibility of providing an unbelievable experience for the employee. So that's something I believe passionately about still today. And with that, they provided some unique leadership training, which has contributed to my leadership journey. Wonderful experience. Really enjoyed that position. So that saw me grow from a senior developer into a team lead, into a development manager of multiple teams for the first time. At that time, Booking.com reached out to me over LinkedIn, and they said, "Hey, would you like to interview with us? If you make it to the final rounds, we'll fly you out to Amsterdam, all on us." And I'm like, "Okay, yes, right. Free trip to Amsterdam. That's the goal, right?" I was never expecting to get the job. Lo and behold, they offered me the position to join as a team lead there, managing 10 people. Uh, my family and I said, "You know what? This is a once in a lifetime opportunity. We have to take it." So we said, "You know what? Let's do it." We sold the house, sold the car, packed up the kids. They were fortunately young enough that we could do this still. And we moved over to Amsterdam. And it was a wonderful experience. Booking.com made it really easy for us to move. They supported all the relocation and everything. I joined the team there as a leader of 10 people, working on a deals team, as it was called. And we did a lot of really good work there. And after a year, I was promoted to a managing software developer, which saw me leading 6 teams, about 30 people across a diverse set of responsibilities, from machine learning, particularly how do the properties on the website get ranked, um, analytics, how are people using the sites, front end experimentation, and how do we display our prices, to back end contract reconciliation. So it was a very diverse array of topics. So that was wonderful. Then COVID hit, and a variety of other compounding issues said, "You know what? It's time for us to move back to Canada at this time." So that brought us back to Canada, where I joined Myovision, which does traffic cameras and uses computer vision to do counting and safety assessments and all kinds of other things. Spent a few years there, and I managed. They have 2 camera businesses. There's temporary cameras and permanent cameras. I won't get into the differences. They have a computer vision team. I managed all of those teams during my career there, which was an interesting experience, because I don't have a computer vision background, so it was a real opportunity to step up and lead a team where I wasn't the expert. So great experience. Then I joined another startup where I had the opportunity to run product management as well. Uh, Unfortunately, that COVID led to some other struggles with that one, which uh, forced me to move on to another company, more recently, Car Data, where I was a director of engineering there, doing mileage tracking. Wonderful position. Helped them close a round of funding, and just based on different situations, I decided it was time to move on, and that's what has led me to Bentley, where I am here today. Director of software development. I manage the biggest organization I've managed here today, 120 people, and many teams. It's been a wonderful experience, and so all of this career um, has given me a lot of different leadership training classes and stuff like that. But I've also had a lot of different experiences with a variety of teams, international and otherwise, where I've seen a lot of patterns and behaviors that have informed my management philosophy, which I've written about in what I call CAMP. So it's an acronym which represents a connection, autonomy, mastery, and purpose. The first place I really got a chance to use this was actually back in booking.com. And what I found it was really helpful with is you can use these pillars, and connection speaks to how connected are the people to one another within the team. Also, how connected are the people to the company? Do they understand what they're doing here, why they want to come in, and all that? Autonomy is, do they have the information they need to make the decisions and learn the lessons that they need to continuously improve? Measurement is about what are we measuring? Do we understand what success looks like? And purpose is really about what is it that we're all coming into the office here to do. And so by looking at those pillars, I was able to actually build an assessment. And the first time I tried this was at booking.com, and it helped me highlight a situation where there was one person in the team that wasn't having the same experience as the rest of the team. And so through using CAMP to assess, was he connected to the team? We saw that no, he didn't seem to be connected to the team. He also didn't feel like he had the autonomy he needed, and there were other situations as well. Using CAMP to assess the situation, I was able to identify that a person needed help, and I worked with their manager to say, okay, we've built an action plan, and we were able to actually help that person really integrate into the team, and it improved the situation considerably. So that was the first assessment. The first time I used it was at booking.com, and since then I've been using it in a variety of different ways throughout my leadership journey. Right now, I'm using it to look at expectations of my different development positions and basically anywhere I can. It's a very general philosophy, so I find it quite helpful. That's been a lot. So I'll pause there in case you have any other follow up questions.
I mean, that's a fascinating journey, Brian. I would say, from building software to building teams right now, right? It's a very inspiring journey that you had. Uh, I would definitely like you to, shed more light on the CAMP framework, right? And what were the defining moments that that forced you to develop such a framework? And did you, find any challenges in terms of executing or implementing the CAMP framework on your teammates or the other organization that you worked for?
Yeah, so a couple of important aspects that led to the formation of the camp framework, right? Well, I explained the booking.com situation. That was sort of the first thing. Part of it also came from the leadership training that I had at 360 Insights, particularly focused on culture. And that's really what camp is about. Is it's a very people focused framework. If you look at the individuals, the underlying theory is that if you can help individuals find their happiness and you get a group of happy individuals, you'll get a high performing team. And if you get a group of high performing teams, you should have a high performing organization. And so the challenges that I've experienced sort of rolling it out is that there are different aspects are difficult in different organizations. So, some companies, based on the leadership, may struggle with autonomy and really building the trust and showing the behaviors that the team need to support that autonomy. Typically, the example I give is in startups where you have a founder who is very in the weeds, let's say, that can disempower a team because they're taking all of the decisions. They may be overriding decisions. And so helping the team push back against those behaviors and setting up the systems that CEO or senior leader needs to ensure that they have the trust with the team is an important step. Also, another challenge is measurement. Measurement is very difficult. What do we want to measure? Choosing the right measures, being able to actually instrument the measures within the team can be a big challenge as well. So those are a couple of challenges with rolling out the framework that keep me interested day to day.
Definitely. And because you spoke about measurement, right? And I want to focus that and zoom in on the trends and frameworks that are influencing the modern software world today, right? And today in the fast-paced technology era, there's a lot of emphasis that is given on data and matrix, right? Everything revolves around that, and it is good to a certain extent, but it has one con that it can also divide people, right? And I want to understand more that how you can align effectively product design and engineering teams, right? Because all of these teams work differently on different tasks, and at the end they have to deliver what they're expected to deliver, right? What's your take on how metrics can strengthen or weaken cross-functional teams between the teams that we've said earlier?
Looking at metrics and how we measure a team, the most important thing is to start off with a measurement that includes every member of the team. If you look at how a scoreboard for a sports team, right? You don't track the score of each individual player. I mean, they kind of do off to the side, but the big one that everyone is looking at is for the team, right? If you look at a basketball game, everyone's watching the big scoreboard to say which team has how much. So you want to establish those metrics. What is that one thing that is really important for your team to measure, and make sure that it encapsulates all of those different roles? So making sure that the product management team is firing on all cylinders, making sure the design is giving the support they need, to engineering, making sure that they are building the things to the best of their ability in the time provided. So that is the first measure that you need, is something very I like to use the metric of cycle time. So what that measures is from the time you have an idea to the time you get it into production, what is the time that elapses from here to there, right? And if you can shorten that, that is going to get value out to the customer very quickly. Once you have that initial metric in place and everyone is looking at that, then you can look at where do we think the bottlenecks are, and then you can start putting metrics in around those bottlenecks. See, is that actually a problem? Is there something that we can do to help? And so, going back to the sports analogy, if you have that one big scoreboard, then you can look at the individual ones or smaller, more granular metrics to see, like, okay, here's how we can improve. Here's what the improvement can look like. What if we take metric X and increase it by 10%? What is that going to do for the overall throughput of the team? So that's how I think about metrics and the challenges and using them to bring cohesion.
And I like you focused on about how the from proof of concept till the time you start working on that project, right? That might be a lot of gap, right? And when we think about till the time, right, from it's a proof of concept till the time the software is shipped, right? And with technology evolving at such a fast rate, right, there might be a challenge that not a lot of proof of concepts are shipped, right? They remain as an idea, they never get executed, right? So do you suggest any metrics that will ensure that the ideas are executed and they've been delivered within the time frame that we have suggested?
So POCs I think of as experiments, right? And having a failed experiment is not a bad thing. It's about learning. So as long as we are learning from these things, that's the important thing. So if you want to put a metric around experimentation, what some companies do is they have a uh, what is the term they use? Basically, an error budget, let's call it. So uh, experiments are allowed to fail, and you're allowed to be aggressive with your experiments, and there's an amount of budget that says you can use up this much money for failed experiments. And gives the company a way to say, okay, let's be aggressive, but if we start eating through too quickly that budget, then we need to scale back the aggressiveness of these experiments, start focusing on things that we believe are more sure things until we can see the results we need, and then we can level up the aggressiveness again in the next year, next quarter, whatever the case may be.
Right now, AI has become the talk of the town, right? Everybody wants to integrate AI into their work processes, wants to develop, AI, and wants to use AI to develop a lot of things, right? And now, because as AI is influencing the engineering and architecture of enterprise tech so much, according to you, what are the aspects that still needs to be strictly human and not handed over to AI?
Absolutely. Yeah, you can't avoid AI these days. There are a couple of things that absolutely need to stay in the hands of people, though. And in my opinion, those things are the customer experience and quality. We are ultimately building things for people, by people. And so if we take people out of the equation in that building process, the good results are not going to come of it. Right. And I think we see that a bit with vibe coding. It was all hot, exciting at the beginning, but now people are like, hold the phone. It's good to start with, but maybe not meant to live forever, right? Um, and then looking at that brings me to my next point, which is quality, right? Like we need to be looking at making sure that the things we ship are meant to last for longer than we expect. And so making sure that they're architected well, making sure unit tests are developed, and all of the proper development practices that we know about from decades of building software need to be put in place. And so, a great example where AI can help with this is one of my teams has actually used AI to do a sort of a pre-screen of pull requests before code is checked in. And so it'll go through and it'll make all kinds of suggestions, look for anti-patterns and all that stuff. But at the end of it, a human still looks at it. A developer with experience still looks at it and says, yeah, okay, this makes sense, that makes sense, or not. And then they have the final say on whether or not the pull request goes ahead, because AI still hallucinates. And if that gets into your code, that's going to be a nightmare to debug likely. So those are the couple of things that I think need to stay in the hands of people. And the other aspect of it is, AI is software too, and you're not in control of the updates that are getting pushed out. So that wonderful script you have that worked wonderful one day, if they release an update, all of a sudden the prompt changes, the response changes, and now you're like, okay, what's going on, right? So we have to be careful of these things.
And like what you said about vibe coding, literally, vibe coding is the Collins 2025 word of the year. So they have integrated the dictionary, and it is the word of year 2025. and that's a new concept, and everybody's talking about it. And later on, you moved on to the how biasness or hallucination of AI can happen, right? So what are your tips on ways organization can eliminate the unintentional biases that AI can place in the code? Are there any techniques or
Absolutely. So the best analogy I've heard of in working with people work talking about AI is that AI is like a toddler that knows everything in the world, right? So a lot of knowledge, but they don't know how to execute it, or AI doesn't quite know how to execute it. So the key is that you have to hold its hand along the way and get it to do small steps at a time that you can easily verify. So rather than saying, build me an app that lets me create a to do here and do all of these other actions, you want to start with set up a basic app framework. Go. And then you can read that through. It's like, okay, next, add in a page that lets me add a to do. Here is what a to do should look like. Okay, go off and do that. Okay, cool. Now, when a to do is added, have it appear somewhere specifically on the screen. You need to look at these small little incremental steps that you can easily verify. And then that is a way to maintain quality and not let things go off the rails.
and I do ensure I do agree to the point that human in the loop is very important. And and I really like your focus on camp framework, right? That's a perfect blend of how human and leadership can coexist and work towards one common goal and achieve the business goals as expected. And I want to zoom in on that part a little bit more, right? Because your camp framework is all about connection, autonomy, measurement, and purpose, right? And from an engineering leadership lens, what do you think, what is out of all of these factors, what is that breaks first when organizations are scaling too fast?
Absolutely. I've seen this happen. Honestly, the first thing to go is purpose. Purpose is a difficult concept to maintain in a growing organization. If you look at how a company grows, it's going to start with a core group of people that really know what they are trying to do. They've embodied it, it's their idea, they understand it like no one else. So they get it, and even if they write it down, it's not going to have the same meaning that they have in their head. And so as the company starts to grow, they're going to onboard that first set of people, and you know what, if they find super passionate people and they explain it really well, good chance that they will be able to transfer that meaning to that next person. But then, if you've ever played the game of telephone, the next person that new person onboards, it's not going to be quite the same. And so there's this diffusion that's going to happen with purpose that unless it's coming right from the people who initially created it, and they need to reinforce it, speak about it regularly, and also evolve it based on the market needs, etc. If that doesn't happen, then it's going to diffuse, and people are going to wonder, so what exactly are we doing here again? Because I thought I knew, but what we're doing day to day doesn't necessarily match up. So that's a difficult one. First one to fall. Next, I'd say is measurement, for a couple of reasons. One, measurement is really hard. I mean, measuring the right things, even not even just looking at people, like what do we measure for people and teams is a difficult question itself, but even within the product, what is the user journey that we want to measure to make sure people are flowing through? That's a difficult question as well. Um, so getting the tools and instrumentation and all that stuff right is a big challenge. And so let's say you even have all of that stuff sorted out, timeline pressure, often that measurement is one of the first things to get cut because got to get stuff out, got to get stuff out. Well, if we ship this feature and no one uses it, we should know because we just won't see the revenue, for example. But that's not the best measure for these things. So those are the first cracks that I've typically seen.
And as you said, purpose is the one that will slip through the first, right? And when organizations are scaling, especially startups, right, a lot of new people join in, teams grow, and there is very little uh, you know that you can do to ensure that the purpose is still intact, right? So how can you ensure that organization still stays on the purpose even when new team members join? How can the startups or mid-sized organizations overcome this? battle?
It's about repeating the purpose over and over and over and over again. The purpose of the company should be something that is repeated and reiterated at every all hands, every quarter at least, like every almost every month, basically. And an important thing that helps with it is saying, here's the work the team is doing, and here's how it is contributing to our purpose. Again, looking at connection, if you can connect the work that people are doing day to day to the purpose, that's going to be a very important thing to help people understand why they're coming into the office every day and how they're contributing. If you can build that connection, people are going to feel a lot more passionate about what they're doing at the job, especially if it connects with their personal values. Then you're golden. Right? People will work super hard if they feel that they have a shared purpose with the company.
And whatever we discussed in this segment is such a valuable insight that you have given, Brian, because that perfectly moves us to the next segment that we are focusing on, and that is leadership, right? And when I consider about like today's work culture and all of that, I believe that empowered teams are have become very important in today's era for any organization to succeed, right? But when we speak about empowered teams, usually these teams require the leadership to step back, right? So how do you personally navigate the balance between guidance and autonomy?
Absolutely. My earlier example was a CEO getting a little too in the weeds, right? So I completely appreciate the question and the challenge. So what I personally try to do is set up systems and set expectations with the team or the team lead, and looking at being very clear on how we're going to measure and what I'm looking for. So um, you want to build systems that provide predictability. So an easy example is, let's say you're an agile team working in the Scrum methodology. You have 2 week sprints. The simple thing that I'll start with is, okay, you are going to commit to a set of work at the beginning of that sprint. At the end of the sprint, we're going to have a look back and say, of that first set of work, how much got done? Work is going to come in throughout the sprint that is going to, possibly take some of that priority. But at the end of the day, let's say you started with 5 work items and you only got 2 done. Well, then I have a reason to ask the question, what happened? Why couldn't we meet those other commitments? What are we doing to improve on that? And what are we going to do for the next sprint to make sure that we actually do better? I'm not saying perfection is the key. Like, I'm not expecting 5 out of 5 items getting done every sprint, right? But 2 to 4, 2 to 3, I just look for the continuous improvement. I don't mind mistakes, but if we are making the same mistakes, that becomes a problem. We're not continuously improving. And so that's what I do to sort of facilitate the autonomy in the team. And trust builds over time with this as well. As you see the team able to accomplish those smaller goals on the 2 week scale, for example, then you can sort of trust them to complete bigger tasks that take a bit more time. And so you can step away a little bit more. You still need that avenue to verify. But as teams grow, it becomes an increasing challenge to say, are they working on the right thing? Are they getting the stuff done? And so building those systems in early is super helpful.
How do you spot the right moment to understand that the team needs more autonomy? Like, are there any signs that leaders need to look out for?
If the team is coming to you for approvals too often, or for your opinion, for like, oh, what should we do about this, that, and the other thing, it's very easy because, particularly being an engineer, I like to solve problems. Like, oh, I think you should do this and that and the other thing. I like to take the approach of 3 and 1. What are 3 things you think could work? What is the one thing you're going to go ahead with? And how are you going to know if that's successful or not? It's a great method of coaching individuals to like put them in the driver's seat. And then you are unlocking their abilities, still engaging with them and saying, okay, you give this sense of approval because it's their idea, they're able to move with it, but they still have that person to bounce off of, and they can build their confidence that way.
And like when I speak to a lot of leaders like you, right, there are three important aspects for any organization to succeed, right? One is people, the other one is process, and the third one is technology, right? And a lot of businesses or organizations find it a challenge to balance all of these three, to solve this puzzle altogether, right? Do you have any best practices to ensure that the people, processes, and technology are aligned in a way to ensure that the business goals are achieved quite quicker.
It all comes down to the purpose. What is the purpose of the business, and are we choosing the people who are contributing to that purpose and understand and really live that purpose? When it comes to process, we have to understand that process for the sake of process is no good. Process is there to repeat our success. So you need just enough process to repeat success for the business. And the technology we choose needs to also support the process. So if you get the right people, help them build the process that works and helps them repeat their success, and then bring in the tools and technology to support those processes. And I think that is a good path to finding some cohesion along that axis. Perfection is never possible, but I think it'll set you up for success as well as can be hoped for.
That is so true. And one question I would have for you next would be any leadership advice, that you would advise to the other leaders that you think, someone would have given it to you quite earlier at your progress stage.
Absolutely. Don't forget about yourself. This is something that I think a lot of people in this day and age, everyone puts a lot into their job, and that's good. If you're passionate about it, that is excellent. But make sure that you are leaving time for yourself to rest and recuperate, because as the leader, if you are not showing up at your best, it's going to be difficult for your team to show up at their best as well. Energy is a two-way street. If you're giving the negative energy to the team, they're going to give it back to you, and it's a feedback loop. If you can come in with a positive attitude, optimism, all of those important things for a leader, that will be reflected back to you, and the team will feel that as well. So absolutely take care of yourself. Self-care is never selfish. So make sure you step away, take the time, reflect, and recuperate.
That's such an important advice that you have given, and thank you so much for sharing that with our audience, Brian. But before we let you go off today, I want to switch the gears and put the podcast into a lighter mode. Right, that's our favorite part that we do. That's our rapid fire questions that we do with our guests, and short, instinctive answers I would expect in this segment. Let me know whenever you're ready, and let's go for it.
All set.
That's great. So coffee or chai, I mean tea, what's your favorite?
Coffee. I actually used to roast my own coffee at home. I really enjoy coffee.
That is really nice. What's your favorite weekend ritual?
Breakfast at my house is a big deal. I've taught my girls how to make Finnish pancakes, and so we'll make those on the weekends, and it's there's a lot to it. It's a lot of fun.
And mountains, beaches, or city, your favorite ideal escape?
Beaches, can they be close to mountains? I like looking at mountains, but I love being in the water.
True, I'm a water baby too. Like, water is a thing. If you could master any one skill, non-tech, what would it be?
Probably karate. So I'm working on karate right now with my young daughters, and it's a wonderful. We sit at the desk all day, hunched over and everything. I find karate is a great way to open the body up and get you moving again, and helps to counteract these things. So anything physical, but for me, it's karate.
And if aliens landed up on Earth, what food would you offer them the first?
Probably a good barbecue brisket.
That's right. And one city that feels like home.
Honestly, Amsterdam. I love Amsterdam. And part of the reason, so I live in a little town called Elora, Ontario. Part of the reason we chose to live here is because it has the same sort of vibe.
And one city that is still on your bucket list.
I'll give a country, New Zealand. I want to go anywhere in New Zealand.
Beautiful island, beautiful sunrises, probably sunsets as well. But the best country to explore the water and the mountains as well. But thank you so much, Brian, for joining us on this insightful episode of TechDogs Discover Dialogues. It was a pleasure to speaking with you. But before we wind up, any parting words you have for our audiences?
Just keep doing your best every day. That's all anyone can ask of you. And sometimes your best may not be everything that you want, but as long as you keep doing your best, that's all people can ask of you, and all you can ask of yourself. So take that as you will. And thank you very much for this opportunity. It's been a wonderful time talking here with you, Nikhil. I hope we can do it again sometime.
Appreciate your time, Brian.
Thanks for tuning in. If you enjoyed this episode, subscribe on YouTube, Instagram, or your favorite podcast app. Catch past episodes and more at techdogs.com. See you next time.